The thunder rolls, the sky blackens. A man sits in the ashes, his skin torn by boils, staring at the horizon as if it might answer. The story says he was blameless. The story says he was good. And still, God destroyed him. Every breath tastes of dust. Every heartbeat is a drumbeat against silence. Once there were children's voices in this house. Once there were herds in the fields, laughter at the table, songs at the fire. Now only the ruin remains. He does not curse, he does not beg, but his eyes are not empty, they burn. A question is forming there, a challenge. What kind of God does this? What kind of justice feeds on the innocent? This is not the tale of a man who lost his faith. This is the tale of a man who stood his ground when heaven itself turned predator. And in that moment, the storm was no longer just in the sky. Far above the ashes of earth, a council gathers. Not angels with harps, not light without shadow, but powers, old as the soil, sharp as flint, assembled before the throne. The air trembles with unspoken law. Rows of silent figures, each more ancient than empires, stand in formation. Their faces are masks of authority, unreadable, unyielding. And there, the accuser. Not the devil of later myths, but the prosecutor of heaven's court. A voice without pity, without warmth, addressing the ruler with surgical precision. Does Job fear God for nothing? A single question, yet it carries the weight of a challenge. The wager is set. Strip him of blessing, strip him of shelter, strip him of every joy and every protection, then see if he still kneels. The ruler does not hesitate. And in that consent lies the true wound of the story. A God wagering the soul of a faithful man to settle a point of pride. No trial, no crime, only a test designed to break what is whole. And far below, on the dust and clay of the mortal world, the first shadow of ruin begins to fall. The ruin does not come all at once. First, a messenger with news of raiders. Then another, fire from the sky. Then a third, more theft, more slaughter. And finally the one who should never have come, all his children gone in a single collapse. And still, Job bowed his head. Still, he said, "The Lord gives, the Lord takes away." But the blows did not stop. His health failed. Sores covered his skin. The man who had been a pillar of his community now sat in the dust, scraping at his wounds with broken pottery. It is here, when his body is as ruined as his house, that his friends arrive. They sit with him for 7 days, 7 days of silence, 7 days of waiting for him to curse himself, to admit that some hidden sin has brought all this down. And when they finally speak, it is not comfort they bring, it is accusation. No one suffers without cause, they insist. God is just, therefore you must be guilty. But Job will not bow to that. He will not confess to crimes he has not committed. He will not protect the ego of heaven by destroying the truth on earth. This is not yet revelation. It is something smaller, but just as dangerous. It is a man saying no. And that word will echo further than he knows. Days turn into weeks. The arguments circle like vultures, tearing the same wounds open again and again. Job has answered every accusation from men, Now he demands an answer from the source. The day begins without warning. A hot wind sweeps the plain. Shadows lengthen where they should not. The animals grow restless. Birds vanish from the sky. Then, the light bleeds from the horizon. The air grows heavy, pressing against the chest. A sound rises. Not thunder, but something older, deeper, as though the earth itself is drawing breath. The whirlwind descends. It is not a voice that greets him. It is presence, immense, unyielding, and absolute. When the words come, they split the air. Who is this that darkens counsel by words without knowledge? No apology, no explanation, only challenge. Then the barrage. Were you there when I laid the foundations of the earth? Have you commanded the morning since your days began? Can you loose the cords of Orion? They are not answers, they are weapons. Rhetoric as thunder, questions as hammer blows meant to break the spirit. The storm becomes theatre, lightning clawing the sky, clouds folding into monstrous shapes. The voice rolls over the land, drowning every other sound. And yet, within the fury, a crack. For to speak at all is to acknowledge the man before it. To answer him, even in rage, is to admit that his cry reached the heights. Job stands in the dust, battered by wind but unbroken. The questions rage on, but now the silence between them feels different. Charged, dangerous, alive. When the whirlwind fades, there are no answers, only the residue of power. Most would bow, relieved that the storm had passed. Most would take the absence of fury as a return to order. Carl Jung saw something else. In 1952, he published Answer to Job, a work so bold it drew outrage from theologians and unease from his peers. Jung did not see this as God's victory over man, but as the moment when God became more conscious, its own awareness awakened through the presence of a single human being. For Job did not break, he endured. And in that endurance, he revealed something the storm could not erase, a moral strength that surpassed the one who tested him. To Jung, this was not blasphemy, it was the evolution of the God image, a creation forcing the Creator to confront its own incompleteness. The voice from the whirlwind was not the voice of a fully integrated being. It was divided, light without its darkness acknowledged, authority without compassion. And when Job stood his ground, that division could no longer be ignored. Here Jung connected an older buried thread, the absence of Sophia, wisdom. Without her, the divine was incomplete, lacking the balance that tempers might with mercy. Job's trial became a catalyst, an undeniable proof that the human spirit could hold a standard the heavens themselves had yet to meet. Jung believed this confrontation planted a seed, not only for Job's transformation, but for the transformation of the divine. This was not the end of the story. It was the moment when heaven, for the first time, had to look inward. The whirlwind has passed. The accusations have been met, and Job still stands. He is not the man he was before. Loss has stripped him down to something elemental, something that cannot be traded, taken, or burned. In the old telling, God restores him, twice the wealth, new children, long life. But the true turning point happened before any of that, here in the quiet after the storm. The land is silent. The air is heavy with the scent of dust and scorched earth. His body aches, his skin is scarred, but his spine is straight. For Job has endured the unendurable and refused the easy lie. He has faced a power greater than himself and held to the truth, even when the cost was everything. This is where myth and psychology meet. Jung saw Job's endurance not as passive suffering, but as an act of sovereignty. He stood before the highest power he knew and did not surrender his integrity. The trial was meant to break him, but instead it carved him into something new, something more dangerous to the powers above, a human being who knows the worth of their own soul. Here the arc shifts, from trial to transformation. The man who sat in ashes has become more than the sum of what he lost. The story's surface will tell of restoration, flocks returned, children born, years granted. But its depth whispers something rarer, that a human being can meet the gaze of heaven, withstand the weight of its fury, and remain unbroken. And once you know you can stand, you can never be ruled the same way again. Perhaps the real question is not whether God answered Job, but whether Job's defiance became God's own awakening. And if a man can change the mind of heaven, what might you change when your own soul puts you on trial? If this exploration of Jung's answer to Job resonated, ensure you don't miss future videos by liking and subscribing. And if you're moved to support this work, you can find a link to our Ko-fi in the description below.